Today we're going to taste 6 wines from the 2015 vintage, 6 Pinot Noirs. This is really the first year that we've had a magnificent, 6 set like this. That was the vision that we kind of crafted a few years ago, and so it's exciting to be able to present this set. These are what we would certainly, and I think all of us would share that sentiment. These are really high quality Pinot Noirs. These are great vineyards that we've been able to develop relationships with, such that we can make these wines. And so the intent was to have 2 from the Anderson Valley, Mendocino County, 2 from different pockets of the Sonoma Coast, and then 2 from the Napa Carneros. And so, boom, we've got it. Today it's a little bit of a celebratory moment because it's not necessarily turnkey to make that happen. You probably can appreciate that, to not only get the 222, but to get them to be really good at the same time. So I very much appreciate Sean's effort, Jessica's effort, and the team effort to produce these wines. We're going to taste them in a somewhat logical sequence, starting with the Anderson Valley to the north, where we have the Farrington and then the Gorgian. So we'll have 2 different vineyards from opposite sides of the valley there, noted on our map here. Then we'll have 2 Sonoma Coast selections, starting a little further to the north with the Nobles, and then we'll come down, which is Fort Ross Seaview, and then we'll come down into the Occidental area, Freestone area, and we'll taste the Piedra Libre. So 2 Sonoma Coast and the Piedra Libre, very exciting in a first year for that particular vineyard. And then we're going to move to the Napa Carneros, where we'll taste the 2015 Hyde, or I should say Hudson first, and then we'll finish with the Hyde. So that set is what we're here to look through. With that, I'll turn it over to Sean and maybe give us a sense, your sense for the Farrington Vineyard first, and then even more specifically this 2015 version of it.
So Farrington is down in Boonville. It says it's at the mouth of Anderson Valley as you enter in. In this case, we have a diverse amount of clones. We have Gorgian. Rooney is the farmer, and he's a part owner in this particular vineyard, in both vineyards, in Gorgian and in Farrington. To be a little warmer in that area because it's farther away from the coast, so it's sort of a flip-flop with Anderson Valley, it's flip-flop what we have here in Napa, where we have all the cooler sites starting down in the south, working your way north. In this case, it's more of a northwest, moving down to sort of a southeast type direction. The whole valley, I think, is 14 miles long, 10 miles long. So we span that entire stretch. In between there, in about the middle, is where we get Juster, which is the first fruit potential is going to be coming in, and then we get a couple more vineyards for sparkling, which is Conzelman and Wiley and Day Ranch. So that tends to be this style tends to be a little more feminine. There it tends to be a little broader, brighter than the Gorgian. The Gorgian is definitely going to have a little more acidity, has a little darkness. And we try to blend them together. They, again, don't seem to like to play well together. They like living on their ends of the valley and don't really want to come to the middle and have fun.
Wine, it's got elegant acidity. It's really clear fruit expression. Tends to be a little bit more of the red berry fruit, so ripe raspberry, a little bit of like red cherry, and then there's this nice essence of like cocoa powder and like a lightly floral rose petal sort of element to it. So it's always a really nice, clean, very pretty Pinot Noir.
The Gorgian Vineyard, though, is a newer project for Paul Rooney. This is now the third vintage that we've got some fruit in the glass here from this site on the really about half the distance to the coast from Farrington, and it's a little lower elevation. It's but definitely a little closer to the ocean. Typically, what we'd say maybe 2 weeks later, something like 10 days to 14 days later, we'd actually pick this fruit.
But this is a little bit more brawnier, a little bit more beefier than what it is. It's a larger expression we used to get from Launder. Launder was still in that brighter, more cherry camp, and this more pushed definitely for the purple fruit.
So you can definitely taste the hillside influence, that additional structure that the sort of, you don't necessarily hear a lot of talk about tannin in Pinot Noir. It tends to be a little bit softer, and compared to a Cabernet, it absolutely is. But this has a little bit more oomph to it than the Farrington shoulders, if you will. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit bolder. You get a little bit more coffee, darker fruit profile. But still this really nice acidity to carry it all the way through, and to make it, stand out.
We're going to leave Mendocino County and move into Sonoma County. This vineyard actually it's a longer drive to this vineyard, even though it's further south in Sonoma County. This is very much off the beaten path site in that Fort Ross Seaview appellation. If you guys are familiar with the coast, you go out to Jenner and you could start driving up the coast, and there's that old Russian fort, kind of a historical state park. That's the Fort Ross, part of the Fort Ross Seaview AVA. There's a Seaview Road that then climbs up into the hills from there, and so that's the Seaview part of that AVA.
The Martini tends to add this sort of spicier element to the wine, and then the 777 is that dark color, little brooding characteristic there. That tends to be our favorite. If we had more of that, I'm sure we would love it if we planted some more of that fruit out there. The soils tend to be quite dusty. It's in Gold Ridge soils, so they're deep, but he's also on the second ridge in. So the first ridge is where the monastery is, and as you can see the monastery from his property. And there the soils are there, but so he gets a nice warm breeze up there. It rains. I don't know. I think he thinks it rains anywhere from 90 to 100 inches of rain out there for him in a normal rainy season. He'll call and tell me how long it's been raining out there.
14.5% alcohol, but still lower pH and higher TA. How does that? Can you talk about that? Having a high alcohol in this wine over the last two, but still having a higher acidity in this. Is that the altitude? Sunshine? What's responsible for that?
There's a little bit of a longer growing period for this as compared to, say, the Farrington. It's definitely a higher elevation, and so you get, if there's fog in Jenner, it may be sunny and warm up at Nobles, because you're above the fog line a bit. That's not to say he doesn't have fog.
Yes,
it's very thick. But it's, because of that, you get a little bit more of a growing day than you would if you're further down, which is why, like Fort Ross Seaview, that AVA has an elevation aspect to its defining properties. So I think it starts at 900 feet and goes up from there. So none of those sites that say Fort Ross Seaview, they're not down on the bottom, right by the coast. And so part of that is, you get a little bit more sun, you get the fruit ripeness, which, translates into this juicy strawberry, bursting berry fruit that you see in the glass. But you're also able to, because of those cooler nights, you're able to preserve that acidity. And so, you're seeing that sort of combination of elements in the glass.
This is west of Sebastopol, so if you're in Sebastopol and you're to drive to Bodega Bay, you kind of buzz by Freestone on the way. You might not even notice that you actually buzz by it. But this is south of the Russian River, as opposed to where we just were, Nobles, north of the Russian River. These vineyards are not perched up on a ridge, but there's some undulation around the Freestone area, a little up, a little down, and so we're working with a few different blocks to make this beautiful wine. We've also been able to work a bit with some of those blocks in our sparkling program over the last few years, both with Chardonnay and also with Pinot Noir. So this is the first vintage of this wine, and we're really excited to have it in the glass. Sean, tell us a little bit about what we're seeing here.
So in this case, the pick stretches quite wide, similar to what we do at our own property. So the 828 comes at the beginning. You see, I think it's on, what's the date on that? August 21st. And so then the final date, the final pick comes from the Mount Eden clone that we have up top. So you know where at the winery, this is going to be on the ridge that's to the south. You can actually see it from Bodega Highway. And then the next block, which is the 459, comes from a section that is just to the north. And then the Mount Eden is high on the hill next to this other person's property. And then the 115 that we get is near, if you're familiar with, we ever talked about Valentine or the Clearys. Yeah. But this is being in that particular pocket. It's quite cold, it's foggy. It doesn't have a lot of the sun coming in there to be able to warm up the fruit as much as maybe nobles might have a chance to get. So this really does retain quite a bit of its acidity. The 828 is quite exposed, and when you get over the 459, I mean, there's impeccable farming that goes on there, and you really have to be on your toes to make sure that all the fog that comes in there doesn't. They'd be great at making Sauterne out there in that spot. The ability to get into botrytis and the mildew. So it's kudos to the farming for them.
This is a vineyard that is almost in Sonoma. If you picture going through on the Carneros Highway from Napa towards Sonoma, you'll go past Domaine Carneros, you'll go past the Winery Lake, and then kind of between the Winery Lake vineyards and then the DeVoe vineyards, if you're familiar, you picture where the Mum vineyards are there. That's where the Hudson Vineyard is, just on the north side of the highway there. This is another delicious Pinot in the set, and probably a little more delicate, I'd say, than the Hyde, which will follow it. But maybe Jessica, give us your 2 cents on the 2015 Hudson.
This block is the only Pinot planted at that vineyard. It's split in half, two different clones, and we got exactly half of each of those clones. And so, you know, it's on a gentle slope heading upwards up the driveway towards their office area, and it's, you know, impeccably maintained. He's got like some prize-winning sized pumpkins growing off to the side and some beehives and a bunch of other stuff. You know, but for me, this wine is a little bit of juice, a little bit of, you know, sort of both red and like black fruit. Nice acidity, you know, it's mouth-filling, it's rounded out.
But we started working with the Hydes in '95. So, you know, next thing you know, there's 22 years. And so this does feel as if, you know, we'll be making this wine for many years to come. And they're excited, we're excited with the partnership. We also do quite a bit of Chardonnay, more Chardonnay with the Hydes than Pinot Noir in our sparkling program. So probably, when all is said and done, somewhere around 100 tons of sparkling fruit. And then with the Pinot program, we're hoping to get, you know, 10-ish tons. There's one principal block. I'll let maybe Sean, as you're doing a good job pouring, we'll let Jessica tell us a little bit more about the site, and then this wine as well.
So from the Hyde Vineyard, on the sparkling side, or for the Pinot at least, for the sparkling side, we've been getting the Lyre block for a very long time, and then in, I want to say 2014 was the first year we got, 13 or 14 was the first year we pulled from the Lyre block, a little small portion set aside for still. And so we've been playing with this block for a couple years now. It is 2 different clones of interesting origin. The little piggy is Larry's secret suitcase clone. Not going to say where he got it from, but he brought it over. It throws a lot of crop. He calls it Little Piggy, and so that is why that is not an official clone name by any means. It's not Davis clone. It's not one of the Dijon clones, but
Yeah,
it's special. And then the other half is this. We're not entirely sure. We're pretty sure it's a German clone.
it's a German clone of some origin. The relationship is wonderful. They're well established in the valley, and their support of us is very important. We made, as you know, we made the Hyde vineyard-designate sparkling. We made another one last year, so we enjoy the relationship, and Chris looks like he's carrying it on to the next generation.